Okay. All right, so I'd like to call the meeting to order, and it is 6:05 p.m. All right. Dina, you want to do roll call?
Yes, roll call. That will be easy enough because everybody's here. Melinda Tan.
Yep.
Rachel Tittle.
Here.
Christina Costabile.
Here.
Claire Dixon.
Here.
Terry Whitaker.
Here.
David Weingarten.
Here.
And Debbie Yates.
Here. Okay. First item on the agenda are the introduction of the CAPS applicants. And Dina, do you have Denise and Jill on? And I know that
they are not on. So if I see anyone log in just a little while, I will let you know.
Okay, sounds good. And on the agenda, I would like to request that we add vice chair comments to the agenda. That means Claire.
Yes, so I've decided to step down from vice chair just because it's been a extremely stressful year and I have a lot of commitments going on. So I decided that it's something I need to clear off my plate for now. So that's gonna open up to anyone else who's interested.
Awesome, and Claire is graciously staying on the CAPS committee, and she is going to continue with the Ormond Roche Trailhead subcommittee, which given that that's our first really big kind of next piece of public art, I think it was more work than she realized it was going to be, or any of us realized it was going to be. And we totally get that concept, Claire, of 4 kids working full time and doing all that stuff. So we really appreciate you continuing on with these other activities. So that is a good thing. And what we'll do is after we hear from Mike Svets, we'll ask for self-nominations for a new vice chair.
Oh, no.
Okay. Do we have any public comment, Dina?
We do not have any attendees.
Okay. All right. So item number 6 on the agenda. The good news is, Mike, you're much earlier than we anticipated. Are you ready to kind of talk about the new ProStack master plan? Leslie,
Absolutely.
do you want to give a little update on it?
Sure. I think this is Mike's 4th or 5th presentation. So he's done a great job helping us get the word out to the different committees, and he is scheduled for the board retreat on Monday. So Kevin, you get a preview. But I would like to introduce Mike Svelts. He's with Pros Consulting, and they are the team who is working on the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan update. The last one we did was back in 2005, so it's due. It is in need of updating, and the pros team, not to be confused with the pros staff and Superior, they've really dived in and taken a hold of this project and are doing a great job getting us set up to move forward and move through the process with some good community input. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and let him give you an overview of the process, and then you all can have questions if you like.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. Folks, thanks for the opportunity to kind of just give you an overview of kind of the process. It might be a little bit boring, it's process oriented, so you kind of understand how we're going to connect the dots. I myself am actually a recovering Parks and Recreation director. So I spent 20 some years on Leslie's side of the table. And in my last two stops, most notably as the Parks and Rec Director in Charlottesville, Virginia, the department had a key role in what was called an Art in Place program. Just a real brief snippet of that, Parks and Recreation was a liaison to basically all of the cultural and art agencies in Charlottesville. But this particular program, we were in many cases an art contest. Basically, people every year submitted from across the country sculpture pieces or art pieces, and we had identified before kind of voting on those specific pieces in terms of which ones we wanted and which ones we didn't, and then which ones we were interested in potentially buying and becoming a part of our collection. We obviously identified the most appropriate spaces for these throughout our park system. An opportunity to be year over year a panelist to help weigh in on which pieces we were going to take on. So I fully recognize your role is much greater than that. I know it's a significant part of your role. Just wanted to share a little bit of background and recognize that there's nothing like art to create conversation. I think the beauty is always kind of in the eye of the beholder. I think you will never, ever be able to please 100% of the people with the choices just simply because art is a personal choice. But I think based on what we know about your community, I think you do have obviously a lot of public support for the work that you all do. And we certainly will do our very best to work this into the conversation when we talk about Parks and Recreation and its master plan, because that obviously is a way to enhance your public spaces, encourage utilization, create conversation around the park system. So I will share my screen after that long-winded preamble and just kind of dive into it here for a second. All right, slideshow beginning. There we go. Okay, so the team that is really kind of leading this, Leslie kind of mentioned Pros Consulting, but we're a firm that is kind of small and mighty, and I think these days the more efficient and effective you are, the better you are, and the more nimble and flexible you are. But we work all over the country. The firm is based out of Indianapolis. As Leslie kind of alluded to in prior to the meeting kicking off, I am in Phoenix. So just kind of almost a little bit southwest of you all in a much warmer, drier climate. But at the end of the day, in addition to kind of working throughout the country, we certainly have worked very specifically in Colorado. We have completed, we're currently working on the Fort Collins Parks and Recreation Master Plan update and recently completed Durango, but we've done work in Boulder and Aspen and a handful of other places in Colorado just very recently, not to mention over the last 25 years. We really are a firm that just focuses on parks and recreation. 95 to probably 97% of our clients are local government. We have done work for the U.S. Olympic Committee. We do have a contract to potentially do work in Rwanda, Africa. And I myself almost had to do dual citizenship a few years back with the number of projects I had going on in Calgary, Canada. So we are well versed in parks and recreation, and as mentioned, do work nationally, but locally there in your area as well. Joining us on our team is Logan Simpson. Their role's pretty tight. They are going to assess the park system, the inventory it, assess it, do some work around connectivity analysis, but also create what we would call some high-level concept plans, which I'll touch on here in a minute. Our process is really it's a community values process. Parks and Recreation is meant to be experienced by your community. But we also recognize that resources are not unlimited, so you can't be everything to everybody. We do realize that there is a high level of partnerships within your community in which the town's Parks and Recreation Open Space Trails Department is really about, in many cases, a facilitator of services via public spaces. But it's still, at the end of the day, you still only have so many resources around which to manage it. So being able to hone in on what the community desires, what their highest priorities are, both in terms of need and unmet need, will help kind of be the foundation around which we build the master plan. And then, of course, there is a lot of nuts and bolts associated with it. The standards around which you manage your Parks and Recreation open space trail system, the level of service in terms of how much do you actually provide to your community from a programming perspective and park acreage perspective. It is really 23% of your total land area in Superior is parks, recreation, trails. And that is an outstanding kudos to your community in terms of the value that you place on parks and recreation. That doesn't even count all of the Boulder County open space that surrounds you as well. Funding and revenue, obviously, it can be a huge barrier. We're not in the business of creating park and recreation master plans that are completely aspirational. Of course, we want to have aspirations, aspirational goals, stretch goals as part of the plan, but we really need to root it in reality, and nothing roots things more in reality than funding. And so understanding funding, understanding what works in your community, what doesn't work in your community, so we don't make recommendations that can't be implemented and are not realistic. I mentioned the partnerships. Just very quickly, there are certainly 3 levels of partnerships that a public entity like the town engages in. One can be public, that could be with the school district, not-for-profits, a handful of not-for-profits associated with that, and then the private sector. But those partnerships are not all equal in terms of what determines that you have a fair partnership. In other words, a win-win in which both sides have equal skin in the game. And so we will do, in many cases, through our program analysis, we will do that very thorough partnership analysis as well. And then, of course, governance and organization. This is very much tied to financial and financial resources. You have to have staff capacity. You have to have committee capacity in order to carry the recommendations to implementation. So it is a barrier or it is a boon for you. And again, it is something that we need to evaluate to ensure that any recommendations that come out of the master plan associated with the community values model can actually be implemented. So we are going to do our very best to do a public input process. We recognize that times are a little bit challenging, but I think the Zoom component certainly helps. We have done these webinars, so to speak, as part of virtual community meetings for communities in Connecticut, Georgia, here in Arizona, and are going to do one for you all. But one of the things that we certainly kind of want to make sure of, as I mentioned, Parks and Recreation is really about the community and their needs. And if we don't know what those are, it's kind of hard to create those recommendations. So over the next couple of months, we're really going to start to try to create some curiosity about this plan to engage the community. We need to be clear about what this plan is and what this plan is not. This is not solving, say, a maintenance issue at a pool, or it's not trying to determine how best to position a specific trail. This is about a system-wide plan. And a lot of the recommendations that come out of it will be will not be necessarily granular in detail. But we're not here to solve every last little potential design issue or maintenance issue. It's really about, as I mentioned, where the system needs to go to meet the community's needs. We need to have confidence. We need great confidence that the community's voice has been heard and reflected in the plan, and that we are going to act upon their needs. And even more so today than ever, we need to be creative in our processes around which to do this. And one of the things I think is important, and I know this is a pretty rudimentary screen, but there are really 4 groups of people when you start thinking about your community as it relates to Parks and Recreation. You have folks that are very much aware of what the town offers, and they're users of it. But you also have folks that are not aware that the town is providing in some way, shape, or form the parks, the trails, the services, the programs, potentially even art. They may not necessarily be aware of what the town is doing, but they are users and or are folks that experience what is in your system. We need to make sure coming out of this plan that folks recognize everything that the department does and the town does as it relates to parks, recreation, public spaces, and arts. We have folks that are aware of you. They are aware of everything that you do, but they're for some reason non-users. So the challenge there is to understand what are the barriers in place that are making them non-users and try to figure out strategies to overcome that. And then, of course, there's always going to be folks that don't engage. And it's not to necessarily try to convince them to engage, but through this process, at the very least, we want them to be aware of what it is that is offered so that they can make a decision. If they're not aware, it really makes it difficult for them to engage in some way, shape, or form. So that is really about, again, what those barriers are in terms of just creating awareness, let alone utilization. So we do have obviously a number of ways in which we are working through this. We are going to, continue to work through these kind of stakeholder user group committee presentations over the next couple of months. Sometime in August, we will do an online survey that is really geared to trying to get to level of satisfaction, funding priorities, needs, unmet needs, both in terms of programs and services, as well as parks, the infrastructure, parks, trails, pools, facilities, and so on and so forth. One of the things that we recently did in the town of Prescott Valley, which is just north of Phoenix, they have a strong public art component as well, very similar to you, in which they have an art and culture commission. We did work into our survey questions very specific to public art and culture, and would love the opportunity to do that in your community as well. Even so much so that as we develop the survey, that any questions that we have around public art, public spaces, that you have an opportunity to weigh in on those. In many cases, as you know, these surveys can be multiple choice. So it's maybe not necessarily the question that we want to ask, but we need to make sure that we get the choices right, so that we know how the community is prioritizing that very specific function that you provide as part of Parks and Recreation. And I'll walk through the series of public meetings at the end, but as I mentioned, we're also going to do a virtual town hall meeting. So concept plans, as I mentioned, Logan Simpson is really going to kind of develop 3 high-level concept plans for us. One is the Town 15 site. It's currently undeveloped town-owned property, and it has been identified as a possible location for an indoor facility or other potential high unmet community needs. In other words, it's probably that one place in your community that you have an opportunity without necessarily holistically from undeveloped land up to kind of create a signature park that really understands and meets some of the unmet needs that just may not be possible to do in your existing park system. And we also have your 2 pool sites. They're 20 plus years old. The design is fairly obsolete. You have very limited capacity, and there certainly has been expressed over the years unmet needs related to swim teams and lap swimmers. And then capital improvements and financing. We are going to root this. You heard me talk about finances and funding, but we're going to root this in what we call a total cost of ownership plan. And you all deal with this, I'm sure, as part of your choices when you start thinking about public art. So you have an investment, but in many cases, that investment may have some level of operations and maintenance that needs to basically make that investment last. And anything that you build, anything that you put out into the public, anything that's a structure or infrastructure has to have some level of operations and maintenance to it. And if it doesn't, then typically that capital investment doesn't necessarily last as long as you had intended it to last. And in many cases, as I just mentioned, like with your swimming pools, a lot of the built environment in your park system is at some point going to be life cycle replaced. In other words, nothing that lasts forever that's get constructed. But the kicker is we can build something, but if we don't have the appropriate operations and maintenance standards and resources, that capital investment will not make it to what we call the end of its expected useful life. So I use the analogy, buy a new car, don't have enough money to change the oil. You are likely going to be getting a new car before you're even close to being done making the payments on that car. So it's the same analogy because most everything that is built, most communities don't have just cash. Most communities do debt service and then use funding strategies to pay off that debt service. So it's very similar. You take on debt, you make debt payments, but you need to make sure you have the O&M so that you're not life cycle replacing things before you get to the end of that debt payment. And then from a capital improvement perspective, we will divide this up into 3 buckets. The first bucket is really just those things in your system right now that just need life cycle replacement over the next 10 years. The key about life cycle replacement is it never stops. We can create a program for 10 years, but the 11th year, the 12th year, the 13th year, and so on, you will continue to have life cycle replacement. It's commonly referred to as an asset management program. But in essence, we want to create an understanding that you have life cycles to everything that you have in a park system, and we need to have resources in order to continue to provide high quality experiences. Expanded services are really about looking at your existing system and where there are opportunities to meet unmet need without acquiring new land or building new parks. And so these are the loop trails that might be needed in an existing park. It might be a trail connection. It could be that it would be great to have an additional picnic shelter. It could be great that you need shade. And so those are some of those expanded services or strategic changes that we can make to your existing park system. And then the vision area is really kind of that big picture. It's the development of the Town 15 site, potential replacement of pools, or construction of an indoor facility. The other reason why we love to divide these up into 3 buckets is obviously, you can think about this, but there's not a lot of great sexy money out there for life cycle replacement. Typically that needs to be funded through the town. However, as you start getting into expanded services and visionary, it does start to open up your funding strategy options. So we like to align these buckets with those funding strategies as well. And then lastly, as Leslie mentioned, I believe this is the fourth or fifth, I've lost track without looking at my notes, but presentation kind of overview that we've provided to committees. And as Leslie mentioned, we are going to do so with the town board. We're also going to do so in July with the planning commission as well. And so the idea is not to give you this overview, go away, do a bunch of work, and then come back at the end and say, hey, here it is. We're committed to recognizing that there's a lot that goes into a Parks and Recreation master plan, and it's much easier to kind of bite it off in chunks and present the information to you all in a way that's digestible and to get some really concrete feedback from you at each step of the way. So whether that's the public needs, the technical findings, the recommendations, and then of course adoption. So all of the information has a way of building on itself so that when we kind of get to the end, there's no surprises, and nobody likes surprises in a planning document. And we want to ensure that by being transparent and providing this information in chunks, we also get the feedback that's necessary from you all, ProStack, and the Open Space Advisory Committee, Planning Commission, Town Board along the way, so that we don't miss anything. It's almost provides us an opportunity for a gap analysis or an affirmation on the information that we've provided and have found and analyzed, and that will eventually make its way into recommendations. Any questions, concerns, comments, suggestions? The only other thing I will add is that this will likely be something that leaks into the first quarter of 2021 in terms of completion. I think COVID and how that goes will certainly have some impact on our flexibility to the project, but I think we also recognize that kind of once we start getting into the middle of November until about the first of the year, it's not to say that work doesn't get done, but I think we all know that we end up with built-in time off at some point. So we need to take that into consideration as well. Not just for the consulting team, but for you all, town board, and staff as well.
Sounds very familiar. We did something very similar, so yes, totally get that.
Great. I think we're muted. Somebody's muted. I apologize.
Debbie, you're still muted.
I just tried unmuting you, Debbie, and I can't do it. Won't let me.
I have a
There
picture
you
back.
are. I know you were saying something, but
I know, no, my whole screen went black with no touching on my side. So thank you for your patience on it. No, I'm super excited about you going through this process, and it's a big benefit to CAPS that you've actually worked in public art and are familiar with that. So we appreciate being included in the concept of doing the whole PROST master plan. Any other questions or time frame on that? Do the CAPS members have any? Leslie, do you have anything you want to add?
I just wanted to recognize that the placemaking master plan that you all went through last year will be a very significant and important resource to the PROST master plan.
Yes.
So those two should fold together and play off of each other.
yes.
Awesome, thank you for doing that. And Leslie, I have a question. Just in terms of the how you label this, PROS is public, parks, recreation, open space, and then you have park, recreation, open space T with trails, and then you have the ProStack Advisory Committee. So can you kind of fill us in on what the difference is between those three?
So the name of the master plan that we're updating from 2005 was Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails, the PROST master plan.
Okay,
So that document, the title has remained consistent, and we're providing an update to that. PRO's staff obviously is Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. In Superior, we assume that includes trails and arts and, you know, all the different segments of services that we provide. PRO's consulting, I'll turn that explanation over to Mike, because it is somewhat confusing that we have the same acronym.
Yeah, PROS actually doesn't have a full-blown acronym. A long time ago, but it just became PROS over time.
all right, sounds good. Any other questions about Mike or Leslie and how this is going to look going forward?
You know, I think one of the first things that Leslie and Debbie that we can do for you all is to provide you, you know, a few questions that we have asked on surveys previously, and give you an opportunity to weigh in on those, so that we're using the right terminology, we're capturing everything that you want us to capture and want us to find out as part of this, or potentially just use it as a way to affirm the information that was in your placemaking master plan.
Awesome.
I think the one thing that would be really important is to understand that at the very least, the survey provides an opportunity for folks to be aware of the interface between arts and public spaces and parks and recreation and open space and trails. And so I think by just having the questions on there and the choices, we have an opportunity to kind of create that awareness and advocacy, so that it just doesn't become this us versus them, that you're all trying to achieve the end goal of providing, you know, a great public space system, and art is absolutely a part of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
One small question. So when we hire our consultant to help with our master arts, the art path, are we assuming that maybe this person would be in constant contact with Mike, or is Mike even familiar with this, or how do you think that relationship would work? Dina, maybe you have some insight into that.
So I'm interested in what Mike said about his consultant working on connectivity analysis, and maybe we could tie in our art path goal with that analysis. But certainly I assume Mike's team is going to, if not read every word of our master plan, at least read thoroughly the goals in our master plan, and the survey analysis that we had. So I assume that his team will then connect back with us on all of the things that will be incorporated beyond even just the art path. So it's going to be more than just the art path, but certainly if they can provide us with some data or information to inform the art path planning, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
however you really want us, if there's an area or two as part of the PROST master plan update that you want us to focus on, and absolutely positively want us to connect the dots between that master plan, the placemaking master plan, and so on and so forth. All of this information absolutely needs to talk to each other and be consistent. And so I think it's important to have this dialogue up front, so that we're not trying to connect dots that we didn't know existed, right? If you don't know a dot that doesn't exist at the onset of the project, it's hard to connect it later on. So this provides us that opportunity, and I think your weighing in on it will be helpful for us.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for attending the meeting, Mike. We appreciate
You're
it.
very
Thank
welcome.
you for keeping us posted on it.
You're great.
Okay.
Thanks, folks. We'll talk soon.
Take
Hey, have a
care.
happy 4th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's, we're gonna kind of scoot an agenda item in here. And what I'm looking for is self-nominations or anybody who is interested in being the vice chair for the CAPS committee. So, if someone would like to do that, just jump in and raise your hand on this. Anybody interested?
Debbie,
Yes.
as I said, when we talked the other day, if there was no one who was interested in it, I would be interested in doing the vice chair.
Okay. I know.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
And actually, and again, I am so appreciative of Claire doing this, and trying to combine that with the Trailhead Committee. And again, Terry for jumping in and saying she'll do the vice chair. You don't really realize how much work it is to kind of bring this all together. And again, it's a huge thank you to Dina on the other hand too for keeping us all on the right path. So if Terry's the only nomination, would someone like to move to approve her for vice chair?
I'll move to approve Terry as vice chair of the CAPS committee.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on Terry for vice chair.
I need a second, probably.
Yeah, I second it.
Okay.
And move to accept Terry as vice chair.
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome, thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
I'm not quite exactly sure how we are going to work out someone taking notes for CAPS, because as you know, Terry is amazing at keeping all the notes and the meeting on track and doing that historical context. So we'll work that out later, but Terry, thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 6B of the agenda are the Prairie Dog and the Prairie Dog pop-up art project. Dina, I'm assuming you're going to drive. Are we going to look at the examples of that or just go on to questions and comments? I think all of you have looked at them. Correct?
Yes.
Do we even need to look at them, Dina? I'm assuming that maybe we don't even need to do that.
It's up to you in the process you want to take. You can either look at them individually and vote individually, or you can take them all as one group. Maybe somebody wants to pull one out and talk about it, or maybe there's a few someone wants to talk about. So it's pretty open at this stage. Since there's 12 to look at, you may want to do it as a group. So it's up to you.
And if we review them one by one, will you give a concurrent kind of update? Like, this is the artist that said they would add mixed media, kind of give us an overview of the piece?
I could do that. That could take a lot of time. I did submit that 2-page report on that, but if you think that you'd like to take the time to do that, we could. So, it's however much time you want to spend.
Well, and did you have a specific one, Melinda? Because I actually went to print up the proposals and the mixed media ideas from the 12 artists, or I think it was 11 artists, and it was literally 94 pages long. So,
yeah, no, I don't necessarily need to review them, just in case someone else needed to review them. I think I feel rather intimate with the drawings after our subcommittee meeting. So
Yeah.
and I looked at the responses from the artists willing to add some mixed media. So I'm feeling confident. So, but someone else might want to review them.
yeah, Rachel, David, Christina.
The only one that I have, I guess I need to delve into it a little bit more, but the ones with the photos kind of overlaid on it and how that would potentially work. Jacob Newman. The other ones, all the other ones I think are doable and great. I actually kind of like them, but Jacob Newman's on page 8 of the.
Yeah, it's this one.
Mhm.
Exactly. Correct.
Oh, yeah. Does someone want to update David on Jacob's potential?
The other thing too, let me open his proposal so we're all on the same page. And then I'll also open up his response because I did ask him how he plans to apply his images. So let me do those two things real quick and then I'll share my screen. One moment. Okay. Okay, share screen. All right, so here is his proposal. And this is the layers of photos that David's talking about. So he writes here, he has a few ideas on how to execute this, but he's flexible. And at the end of the day, I'd like to work to make the statue fit the town's vision for the project. I think the best option for the statue would be for me to hand draw the concept that I sent directly onto the statue with a combination of paint pens and Sharpie markers, and to color it by hand with acrylic paint and paint pens. And finally, to apply a glaze to preserve the statue so that it can withstand weather and live outside. So he is planning to apply the images by hand, hand drawing, hand painted.
Okay. What did he say about mixed metals or mixed media?
He said, I would absolutely be open to having the statue be mixed media, and I am more than happy to take any suggestions.
Okay. I'm not quite sure how he would do it, but okay.
Yeah, so the next step for some of these artworks, especially those that we're asking to add mixed media, is once the contract is signed, then they would finalize that information and send it back for review. And usually at that point, it wouldn't need to come back to you unless at some point with this final design is what we call it, there's some major change to the design. Otherwise, I would just work directly with each artist to make sure they're implementing their design as you approved with just additional media rather than just painting.
Okay.
David, do you have more questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his other artwork. I kind of like his other artwork. It's kind of, kind of hip and cool and everything. Is it okay if we ask him for like a sort of sketch of what he wants to do and how it would lay out though, and what it
Yes.
just in like a little mini draft?
Yeah, so that would be his final design plan. So
Okay.
once a contract is signed, then he would move forward into that stage. However, if you feel you're not totally confident and you just want to see that final design before you approve it, then we could do his final design stage, pay him his $100, and then you can vote at the next meeting. Here's his other artwork. So here's his portfolio.
Yeah, so David, we agreed. We chose him because we liked the style of many of his other pieces. I think was
cool.
our response somehow encouraging him to, so this is where it gets tricky, right? Because we can't tell him what to do, right? So you say, Dina, so we really liked the style of whatever, the dancing people, or
Gotcha.
Right. So you would say to him, of your images, we really like this aesthetic, just as an example. We like the aesthetic that you used here. It would be great if your style you choose to use on the prairie dog was this style.
okay.
As opposed to this style. So sometimes when you refer back to their artwork and you tell them which of their sample artworks that you are attracted to or that resonate with you, then that helps them in their final design process.
Okay,
And
Yes,
we're
he
able
does
to
have
do
a-
that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like
so
this
for,
is, I think this is the one that was one of our favorites.
Yeah.
David, was that?
Yeah, I like that. I like that, and I actually like the scenic thing underneath it too. But with
The pencil.
you know, if,
or,
if,
yeah.
if you could like kind of do a collaboration of like both with the colors that he used above, you know, because it's like nice and bright and cool and
Mhm.
you know, kind of I don't know. It definitely pops, jumps out at me.
So Dina, and I think, Rachel, did you have any comments on that when we had the meeting a couple days ago?
On which piece, which part?
On Jacob Newman's?
I really like it. I can kind of see what he's trying to do. It was confusing with the overlay of the pictures,
Mhm.
but once you look at kind of his style and how he's talking about drawing it on, I think it would look really cool.
Yeah.
So therefore, Dina, we have 11 artists, correct?
there are
One
10
of-
artists.
10 artists, okay. Do we feel comfortable enough with the concept of Jacob Newman, or is there some way that we should kind of spin and separate him out and have him submit something that is more tangible to us? I will bow to your discretion on this, what you think is the most appropriate way to go.
Well, I think either way is appropriate. So it's whatever you're comfortable with. If you would rather have him do his final design before you approve it 100%, that's reasonable. We would pay him $100 for his design proposal. And then you would have the opportunity to really get an idea of how he could execute. And then at the next meeting, so the July meeting, you would vote on just his one, unless there are others you wanted to pull out today as well and talk about.
Okay, so we can spin his off separately, get going on the other designs for the prairie dogs, and then we would include him on the July agenda.
Correct. And then just to note, then we would need to give him a month as well to execute the design. So his would be installed a month after everybody else's.
right.
Okay, committee, any ideas? Do you want to accept all 10?
I'm comfortable with his design based on what he said and his past work. I would be okay moving forward with it without the additional approval in July.
Yeah, I think
Melinda?
I agree with Rachel.
Okay. Christina?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if there's something that someone's concerned about, like, you know, like if he's gonna fill it all up, that would be my only concern. If it's just, but it looks like he knows what he's doing as an artist, so I also wouldn't really be too concerned.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Would someone like to move to approve the 10 artists for the Prairie Dog Public Art Project?
So moved.
Is that, Terry, was that you? Okay.
I'll second.
Yes.
Melinda seconds.
Okay, discussion? Any other items that you would like to bring up about it?
Well, so do we get to see, well, so Dina, you're going to send out the letters now to the artists and saying you're, you know, to the 10 artists saying these have been approved. But then with Jacobs, we're going to say, we kind of like the style, and his letter will be a little bit different saying we like the style of the, whatever, you know, the 2 other paintings that we mentioned. Is that how that works?
Repeat that question again. I didn't quite understand the question.
Because I wasn't very coherent. So when we send out the letter saying, yay, you know, we like you, go forward, but in particular, are we saying we really like the style of these other pieces that you presented?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So
And so we give him direction that we like his style of maybe 1 or 2 of the images, and to ensure that he does something similar to that, and he can maybe give me a rendering of it so that I can be clear that he's going to execute as you directed. And then at that point, if he doesn't seem like he's executing, then I could bring it back to you guys for review again.
Okay, but
Okay.
the other letters going out are just a thumbs up, go for it type of thing.
Yeah, but they will all still need to give me what their mixed media materials are, because not all of them have done that yet.
Okay.
And some of them are just ideas. So I think once they really get started, before they actually buy the material and start gluing stuff on, they'll need to tell me what the materials are, and then I'll work with them to figure out the best adhesive if they're gluing stuff on. And then I will provide them with the clear coat that we want them to use.
That was my next question. Okay.
So then they'll all put the clear coat on before they deliver.
Okay.
And I'll provide the specs and provide them the actual clear coat for them.
I did have one thought when I looked at the one with the axe. Did you see that with the plastic axe? It didn't, I'm not sure if it would be very durable. So that would be my only feedback based on what they submitted, that it doesn't look like it might withstand the world. I don't know. So that was one thought when that was submitted.
Let's see if I can find that one. Hold on one moment.
Oh, it was like the,
But that also has the opportunity to be something other than plastic. It could be some sort of metal.
Okay, was it just an example?
I think it was just an example. I'm
Okay,
going back
okay.
to find his picture.
Yeah,
think
that's
that
fine.
was-
It didn't look very durable when I opened it. So that
yeah,
was
I
my
think
only
it was
thought.
this one here, Heather Hunt. Attached is a link to the plastic pickaxe I'd like to use to give the prairie dog a 3D effect.
Right.
So I'll open that real quick.
Oh, yeah, it's the one that looks like this.
Yeah, so it's a lightweight plastic that she would adhere to the prairie dog.
I don't know. It might be fine. I have a 6-year-old, so that was my first thought was, is that going to be durable?
Will someone grab the pickaxe off of the prairie dog and run with it, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, just, yeah. So, but I'm, you know.
Okay, any other questions before we vote on the 10 artists? Okay, Dina, will you ask for a vote? A roll call?
Yeah, we can do roll call. Melinda,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Christina,
Yep.
and Debbie.
Yes. Okay, motion passed. And Dina, you'll do your magic work to get them all on board with that.
Yes.
The next thing we need to do are the sites to place the prairie dogs. And I know that Dina sent over a map for you, and the concentration being on town-owned property. So
I
Dina, do we
actually
need?
did not send the map because I
Oh,
had
okay.
not, yeah, I couldn't get it updated in time to send it over. So let me find it here. So the idea right here is that we could look at this this map. Where is it? Sorry, I have to find it. And you're not going to vote tonight. You will
Okay.
just take some time on your own with the link of the map. And you will perhaps, if you want to, go around and look at these actual locations, or just do drive-bys, what have you. And then you guys will discuss and vote more specifically next month. And then that will give us a few days to mobilize the installation team. And the following week after your meeting, hopefully, if everything goes smoothly, we can do the installations that week after your meeting.
So really, they should be up by August 5th or something like that.
Yeah, I don't have the calendar right here in front of me, but it is, does someone have the calendar? I don't.
I'm pulling it up. It would probably be actually even earlier than that because we meet on July 23rd. So you're even thinking that it may be closer to July 30th, for instance. That's the week after our
Yeah,
meeting.
I was thinking it would be the week after the meeting, and worst case scenario, then the next week.
Okay. And when are the prairie dogs due to come back to us? What's the deadline for them?
Just a few days before that. So it would actually be they get approximately a month.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the map. Sorry, it took me a second to figure out where I saved it. So this is the whole of Superior approximately, and the prairie dog potential locations are the orange dots. So what the committee tried to do was spread the prairie dogs throughout town and not have any heavy concentrations in one particular area. So there's a few spots up here in Original Town. There's a spot or two that's available in downtown, and then along Rock Creek, there's some potential sites where the bus shelters will not be decorated. And then within this neighborhood, there's a little park called Circle Park, so that's a possibility. And then further down here, let me just zoom in a little bit. This is the start of that one open space. I don't know what you guys call this. What is like the local word you use when you say, I'm going to such and such? Is there a trail name for this area?
No, because I live close to that and I don't know what it's called, but I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't really have a name.
Doesn't really have a name. Okay, so there's an entrance to this area here. Then North Pool is sort of a no-brainer because it's town property and there's a great entrance. And for that matter, I forgot to mention North Pool up here. And then this site, we're going to move to Wildflower Park. So I still need to update the map a little bit for you for your review next week. But essentially, you'll see in the, let me go back here, in the notes from the subcommittee meeting, they made a list of additional site criteria. So preference for town-owned location, away from playgrounds, near entrances and exits to walkways and such. Concrete available for attachment is preferred. However, there's a spot at Wildflower Park that has really long, tall grass where they don't mow. So a place like that where we know the mowers can't hit it, we can put in tall grass. Anything along high pedestrian routes, distributed throughout Superior. And then one of the criterion was in case we can put more than one at a site to start grouping. So that's how those locations were selected. And that's how we came up with all these orange dots. So there'll be about 13 or 14 sites for you to look at. And you may decide to go in person, or you may just decide to do it on the map because you know the area so well. So we'll leave that up to you guys. And then in July, you can vote and bring more ideas as well.
Dina, would you mind sending me the link to this map, please?
Sure. Yeah.
If you could
Or send it to us all.
please.
Yeah. I'll send it to everybody.
I just wanted
And
to
I think,
include it in the notes, so.
Yeah.
well, and I think, Dina, you sent out the notes from our meeting a couple days ago, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
I can
attached.
pull it up from there.
You know, I did not put the map in the notes. So that would have been a smart idea. So no, the map was not in here. It's just mentioned that you guys looked at a map.
Okay.
All right. Looks good. Thank you. It's going to be really fun to see them up. Okay, item
Just one more question about the prairie dogs. So are we doing some sort of media blitz, you know, in July saying they're coming basically, you know, or are they just going to show up, or are we going to have them, you know, send out a postcard with the map so people can go look for them, or or do we need to have them painted and in person so we could kind of have a collage of all of them so people know what they're looking for? Or I think it needs to be advertised somehow. How do we
Right.
time that?
Good
Well,
question.
I would say in a normal public art project, we would do everything you just said. And it wouldn't even be a question. So because the controversy of this prairie dog, I will leave it up to your discretion on how you want me to move forward with promo.
In a very cartoonish, colorful, playful way.
Whimsical.
Yes.
I like the idea of like a postcard or something. Like I could see that being super fun to like hand my kid and we go walk around and he can like look for all of the different ones as we go.
Yeah, like a hide and seek or like, yeah.
Yeah. They have
What
that at
about
like
some
the
sort of-
nature museum where you can find little tiny elves hidden in all the different things, you know.
What about a gift card for the first person or somebody like that finds them all? It takes pictures, but you actually know they're there.
That's a cool idea.
That is a cool idea. Instead of giving them the map saying these are in town, the first person to, you know, call Rachel gets a gift card.
Did it publish my phone number?
Yeah,
or like a picture of each one and then they submit the location of all of them or something. Like that could be a fun hide and seek
Yeah,
sort of.
that would be fun.
or like
That's a good
first
idea,
20
actually.
the first 20 people can be entered to win. That way you
Yeah,
get more
yeah.
people.
a drawing.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you
True.
put that on
Okay.
Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of good. That's a great idea.
If the postcard was
And I actually-
if the postcard was a black and white one too, where some like the kids could color it, and maybe there could be a winner for a contest for a drawing contest.
Oh.
I love that
I
idea.
like that.
I think adults would color it too.
Yeah,
Adult
for sure.
coloring is very in right now.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Or even like putting like that same poster on the website too, that people could download off of, or having
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yes,
having
do
it-
your own variation. And then where could we put those up?
1500 Colton, or even when that's open, or even I don't know, around town in businesses. I mean, maybe you give them some to the diner or something like that, or I
Yeah.
don't know, put them on the wall.
Oh,
Could be
see,
something with the chamber to see if restaurants would be willing to donate a dinner.
That'd be great.
Kevin, do you have any ideas on that?
I can never come off mute quick enough. No, I think they're all good ideas. I mean, I love the coloring idea. I agree, adult coloring is kind of in right now. That's what I've been working on right this over here. I'm kidding. But yeah, I think they're all a good idea. And getting the local businesses involved here. We didn't get any sponsors, but you know, the closest analogy we had when people were like, "Wait, what is this?" And then have you ever been to Chicago? And then they said, "Oh, like the cows." And they said, "Yeah." When the cows had corporate sponsors. So I think getting the local businesses involved in a fun way would be good.
Well, we actually have one corporate sponsor. That's the chamber.
Wow.
They're sponsoring one of the prairie dogs. So, any other thoughts, Kevin? Given the fact there was a little bit of pushback in terms of this project being prairie dogs. I mean, I think once they see they're whimsical, it'll be okay. But any thoughts?
I don't have thoughts. I think, guys, you're on the receiving end of. You're getting a little taste of some of the nasty emails we get from the community, and I'm sorry you're on the receiving end of those. I do my best to not take them personally, and there's no malintent. This is a fun, whimsical thing. It's wonderful we're bringing art to the community. If a couple knuckleheads are upset that there are prairie dogs that are being gassed and tortured, you know, I'm sorry. It's a fun, whimsical thing. Just try to ignore it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay. Great.
All right.
And they're
We're
not
good
being
with that?
gassed or tortured.
Right.
Yeah, no, Kevin, they're not being any of that stuff.
No, of course. That's I was being sarcastic. I mean, that's
Yeah.
we're not. Right.
Oh dear.
I'll go back on mute so I don't say anything else dumb.
Okay. think we're good with that. And thank you for bringing up the media blitz. I like that. I know that we were a little hesitant about where we're going to go with that. Okay, item 6C on the agenda. Claire, you want to take over with the amazing job you guys are doing on the Ormond Road Trailhead?
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. We're moving full steam ahead. We started with a Zoom meeting of the whole committee, and we're making new friends. We have 3 new friends from the OSAC committee. We just kind of had a chance to get to know each other. They've put a lot of work and a lot of thought into the Ormond Road Trailhead, and they have a lot of like big ideas, for things that they would like to see there. So we kind of spent some time understanding what some of their ideas are and familiarizing them with our processes and what they didn't quite understand what this budget was about and what the parameters were for what we're going to do. So we spent some time kind of getting to know each other. After that meeting, it came to light that there's still kind of some confusion, maybe some concerns about what was going to happen and what this was going to look like. So a few of us were able to meet at the site on Monday. And I think that was really good for us to kind of clarify, what the site looks like and what our options are, and to kind of just talk about our expectations and what we want this project to be, and kind of get on the same page and have the same vision for what we want the project to be. And we came up with some great ideas, and I think we went away from that all feeling really good about moving forward. And Dina put together this great project implementation plan that was attached to our agenda tonight. So I don't think we need to read through it. I hope everybody kind of had a chance to look over that. One significant thing that's in that draft is that the town board had suggested that we also include members from the ProStat committee in our decision-making process. So that's going to kind of change things going forward. I don't actually know exactly what that will look like, if that they're just going to kind of jump in when we get to the after we have some applications and be part of that decision-making process at that point. But so it's exciting that it really is turning into a real collaboration between different members of different advisory committees. So our next step is to approve the project implementation plan, and then we're going to have a quick turnaround time. The request for qualifications and call for entry is set to go out by the end of next week, I believe. So that's where we are.
Absolutely amazing. And all the stuff you pulled together in the project implementation plan is actually amazing. And Claire pointed out that the Board of Trustees requested that 2 of the ProStack Advisory Committee, so I sent out an email to them, and they will appoint someone to be on that committee. As a result, by the way, we need, or that Trailhead Committee needs, 1 more CAPS member on it, because in the project, the Public Art and Design Handbook, anytime there is a public art project, the CAPS members have to be a majority. So therefore, rather than having it the way it was before, we need 5 CAPS members, and then you'll have 2 from ProStack and 2 from OSAC. So there'll be a total of 9 members. So, I mean, if anybody wants to jump on that, that's great. If not, then, I can be kind of like a silent back CAPS person on the committee. Dina, anything to add on that? So we're making sure we follow those guidelines.
No, that sounds great. Everything sounds just right.
Okay. So is there anybody who would like to make a motion to approve the project implementation plan for the Ormond Road Trailhead? Okay, Terry, you're on mute. So, yeah.
Sorry about that. So moved.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion. Any more discussion on the project implementation plan?
No, just Claire's been doing an amazing job. She
Yes.
just led this great, both of the meetings you led, Claire, were really good and inclusive, and it just set a very collaborative tone. So I think that the other members were comfortable. So thank you for that. And then if we need another member, there's only 2 of you. This is like this super fun stage, right? Like now you get to look at the art. So, I mean, if you're going to join it, now's the time.
I can jump
Rachel?
into that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if I could also be on the emails, I'd like to, or know when you're having, just to silently be there.
Sure.
That'd be cool. Thanks.
Well, Dina's thought is that committee may potentially receive, I don't know, 100 or 125, whatever submission. So
Oh, it's going to be
Wow.
so great.
I'm
Really?
excited.
that is very cool. Yeah,
Hmm.
the committee's done an amazing job, especially given the fact that this is the kind of the second bigger piece of artwork that we've done after the triptych. So thank you to all you guys who are doing this. Okay, Dina, you want to call for a vote just to make sure we vote to approve it?
So, Terry,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Melinda,
Yes.
Christina,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Rachel.
Okay,
Sorry, one more.
Yeah.
Rachel.
I'm on the committee. Please let me vote, right?
I vote yes.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Item 6D on the agenda. So, Christina, temporary art exhibits.
Okay, so we have the photography, which you all know about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dina, but you'll start or you'll get the contracts out July 1st and then start advertising after that, or?
So the timeline right now is the artists' contracts are being signed this week. And Leslie, they're coming your way. And then the registration for signing up for a portrait, we're calling it a household portrait just for the ease of it, because some people, it might be an individual who signs up for it. So I didn't want to call it family, so we're calling it household. So registration will open in about a week, approximately, maybe maybe not next week, but long story short, I'm going to try to get it done next week. It's complicated because there's 80 portraits we are funding, and to figure out the schedule for 4 photographers to go to 80 homes is a little complicated. So we're working on that. And then I wanted to share with you kind of where we're kind of settling on the title really quick. I got input from all of you, and I got input from the photographers. And so right now we are thinking of, and I'm going to open and share my screen so you can see it written down too, because that's helpful. Let me share. Where are you? Share button. Okay, we're thinking of history in the making, snapshots of Superior 2020. And part of that long title is because the photographers really liked noting the history part of it, because that's part of the whole point of the project is the history. And so it really helps bring that home. And then the snapshots, they really liked that too, because it goes well with Superior. So we kind of combined those 2 favorites. And I think that's okay. What do you guys think?
Oh, I love it. I think it's
Great.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I like it. Very cool.
So then the next thing is the description will go up, registration will open, promotion will start. And we're looking at the photograph sessions beginning at the 3rd week of July and going for about 2 weeks. So we'll see how we can, if we can fill up 80 slots as fast as I think we can. We'll have all the shoots done in 2 weeks.
Great.
Dina, as you know, the Board of Trustees requested or liked the idea of having every household give a narrative of what, short, maybe a few sentences of what life was like during the whole COVID pandemic. So,
Yeah.
and that would be incorporated into that historical
Mhm.
perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe the historical commission would have some questions that they would like each household to kind of, answer, write about, tell their experience. So,
Yeah.
Christine, if you can reach out to the historical commission, or Dina could also, to kind of find out what they would like to know from a historical perspective.
Okay, the whole group, or do I contact someone specific? No, just the whole.
I can give you the chair's contact information, and then you can, talk with him about ideas and logistics and how you might want to do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, and then the other thing that we have going is the kite artist and kinetic artist, George and Melanie. And yesterday we spoke with them and they showed us some of their artworks. And Debbie and I got to see them we went at different times, but the 815 Spruce. Did anyone else get to see them in person?
Yeah, I went by.
Okay. So maybe actually, Melinda, could you give us any feedback just on your thoughts?
Oh, they were smaller than I thought they were going to be. So,
everything.
Yeah. So, I didn't get out of the car because, I think that wind was coming up and all that kind of stuff. So, my first thought was, because they're smaller and it didn't have the presence that I thought, it would be best experienced en masse, right? And probably moved around. I was a little disappointed. I wanted it to have more flair, but again, I think that the festival idea is a bigger, flashier, event. So, like the houses were tiny. Like I probably could have reached up and touched the top of the houses. So I don't know.
There are a few people here that don't have any idea what you're talking about. Maybe we should look at some pictures.
Yeah, maybe we should look at the pictures.
Oh, did you guys? I took some pictures, but I don't know how to share them with you. They're on my phone.
Oh yeah, I have some too. I took
nice.
them when I went in today.
And it's really, and even in the pictures, it's hard because they're on a hill, and so even the pictures they're bigger than they actually are.
What's the address where these are?
815 Spruce Street.
Boulder.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting because it's in that very cool historic area, Boulder, that is west of Broadway, north of Pearl Street.
Yeah, I know where it is, but I just didn't know where they were.
Right.
So
well, and the hard part when Mike and I drove in to look at them today was that all of the pieces, essentially, not the colored kite pieces, they're all in her front yard. And so I think that, again, that made it a little bit confusing because you had the windmill over here and then you had the teardrops over here and that type of thing. So it was really kind of hard to get an idea of what would it look like with 100 teardrops at different heights, someplace in Superior. What would that look like? And if the wind was blowing, and what it would look like. The same thing with the tall ones. What are they called, Christina?
Well, there's the wind garden that I think they did say they would add. Let me pull up. Can I share my screen? Is that okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. Which one do I want to share? This one? Share. Okay. So we decided not to go with the kite festival is what they call it. It's beautiful, but it could only stay up there for like a half a day or, a day at most. And that also you have to count on having wind. So I think that, a lot of us, we want something a little bit longer. This is the wind wheel, which has this beautiful gold on it. I really liked. And yeah, from the perspective, it looks a little bit bigger, but I mean, it's hard in a photo.
I actually liked it better in person when I saw
Yeah, I mean,
it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
You see their house right here up to the right. So the windmill is probably what, Christina, maybe 20 feet tall?
Oh,
I see something like the wind wheel in one of the parks.
I think he said it was 12 feet wide, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then, yeah, the height,
yeah.
I'm not fully sure. It didn't reach the top of the house. I know it was like, I think the angle that we're at with the camera makes it look like it's taller, but it could have been
the one
20.
that I definitely preferred. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, David liked that one.
That was but the other one, the wind garden was, right? The garden.
Yeah, so this is the wind garden, and this is
was too small, you said?
well, okay, so there's taller ones, and the thing is they're gonna make more. They want to make 80 more, so they can make different heights. And you know, the way I imagined it is when the wind blows, it's like a wave, so maybe they could even like shape it more like a wave. Like, I feel like there are things to do. I mean, it could be very beautiful, and it's kind of calming just even watching them. Like, they're, you know, I guess I would be concerned that you wouldn't be able, they're not flashy, but there is something kind of nice. And when you get close and the sun does shine through it, it illuminates the white a bit. So if you could find the right place, and I think with the impact of having so many, it could be pretty cool. And with the sound ones and the tall ones in the back.
Yeah.
I could see it being different. But yeah, because they only had 10 in their yard, and they are a lot shorter than you first imagine. So
yeah, so I think because they're so small, I think it, we talked about all of these different options for placement, but I think this really makes me want to have it in a park where there are kids around, like in the park where kids would be able to, walk by it and experience it, because it's not going to have much of a presence from a distance, right? So it has to be in a place where there's high pedestrian traffic. That's.
I think it'd be cool, like right by in Community Park, right by the playground there, like right off of Safeway there.
Yeah, I think so.
There's the trees, and then the river's right behind it, or the creek.
And lots of traffic for just walkers and runners in that area.
Yep.
It was interesting. Melanie, when I drove by this afternoon when Mike and I drove by, she was actually out in the front yard, and her thought was that these teardrops, if you do 100 of them, they would be varying heights, and that's kind of where Christina was coming from, that you have them from 4 feet to 8 feet or something, so you see that wave effect. And the other thing that she said, which I thought was rather interesting, is that, as you know, last night in Boulder and Superior, we had that horrible thunderstorm with the winds of like 60 miles an hour, and it was awful in North Boulder. And she said out of those tall ones that are in the middle, that there were only 2 that got damaged. So they actually held up in a really, really big wind, basically pretty well. So I was somewhat reassured with that. So.
And I also think the black and white on them made them stand out more, on not the shorter ones, but the taller ones, having the contrast made them stand out quite a bit more than the shorter ones.
What about putting those around a lake?
Oh, there's that lake near Purple Park.
There are actually a couple of them, but you might get more traffic though for them being visible at Community Park.
Yeah.
Well, Purple Park is also really green, because I know David at one point made mentioned how it does look nice against the green, the white.
True.
So, and then
we want to kind of stick to a schedule here, which I know makes it really hard when you're looking at very cool stuff.
I'll go to the next. So here are the houses, the moving houses. They kind of had commentary that, houses just pop up, and they, imagined that these houses grew legs, which which is cool. Melinda mentioned that they were a little bit smaller than you, I guess, first imagined from these images, but the potential that they could kind of move them in different places might be kind of neat, like, and just have them pop up. And if we found, Debbie was saying, like 4 different areas or something like this where they could move them around, could be fun. And they also light up, which is different.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like
Yeah, like
that.
at night, they have an LED light in there. I
That's
like the
actually-
houses.
Melinda, did you think, and Christina was the same way, is that when you see them in just there in their front yard, they're not particularly interesting. I think the only way that they would have a little bit of interest would be if you took 5 of them, there are 5 of them, and put them on a hill somewhere that people could see them lit up at night. Because just in his front yard, you're kind of looking at him going, oh, okay.
I don't know about, I mean, the sun doesn't get dark until 9. How many people
True.
are out, you know?
Yeah.
One, I think also having them in front of their house or like in front of the apartments, I think doesn't have as big of an impact, because it's, you know, the whole idea is that these houses are kind of coming out of nowhere into like land that's open typically, I would at least imagine. So I like it. I like the idea of it. And, you know, that's why I also, in front of their house, it probably seems smaller, you know, maybe if you saw them out in the right spot, you know, by themselves, it might just have a different feeling, because it's hard with everything going on at the house then to really notice those houses.
I think they're great, but like, will we have to choose between these and the wind garden, or did they say we could do both?
That was another thing we wanted to ask. So if Dina could maybe ask them if it's possible for the price that we, you know, quoted them, to maybe do both the wind garden and the houses, if that's what everyone wanted to do.
Or even the wind garden and the windmill, or
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What about putting the houses near the Ormond Roche Trail, like coming up the road toward that?
I think there's love. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I'd mentioned over on the Colton Trailhead, but that actually, given that it's a newer place, I think that's a good idea too.
Okay, so in order to make sure we get through most everything, Dina, what is our next step? Do we need to vote on what to do with this, or are you going to reach out to George and Melanie to find out what would be included in their our $2,000 budget? What's the next step on this?
Well, I think that conceptually you can all agree that you want to do something so that we can just move forward and figure out what the final something is. I mean, it is such a small budget that I would hate to have to go to the next meeting and wait for another vote. So maybe conceptually someone could move to approve up to $1,999 to do something with George and Melanie, and then the subcommittee could work with them to finalize it and get it installed ASAP.
I move to approve spending $1,999 to George and Melanie for temporary art of the, what do they call it? The wind
garden?
Wind gardens, yes. Okay, second?
I'll second it, but I would like to include the houses, I think, if we could get both of those. If we can only get one, then I'll go with Debbie's, the wind garden, yeah.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Okay, I don't even think we need to vote on that, do we? Just a consensus that we'd all like to move forward on their wind art.
We should vote because you're voting on money.
Oh, on money, that's right. Okay. Want to call roll call, Dina?
Yes. Christina?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Melinda?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
I think that's everybody.
Okay. And what is the actual name of their company?
I think it's Into the Wind.
I shouldn't remember
Store.
this.
Into the Wind? Okay.
the kite store in Boulder.
No, that's the Kite Store, but their actual company name is Airworks.
Oh, okay.
Airworks, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Christina, you'll take it from there and you and your committee will come up with the choices under that budget. Awesome. Okay, quick update, item 6C on the agenda. We don't know what we're doing with the Superior Shindig yet. Boulder County has these certain guidelines and, you know, Terry and I briefly touched on it. It's just really what the county and what COVID is doing at a time when we can decide it. So it's tabled for now. Okay, any other thoughts or questions? We'll keep it in the hopper. Okay. Item 7, new business and updates. So one of the things that we need to pull up, and I know that on the agenda, Dina sent over the budget. And the interesting thing about the budget is that, Dina, can you pull that up real quick?
Sure.
We kind of need to do some brainstorming on this. Knowing that we have not been able to do any of our gathering and community events, which we had budgeted this year, we haven't done those. And they were part of our budget, but we also don't want to just be fiscally irresponsible for the town of Superior, obviously. But I do think that next year, we're assuming that COVID-19 will be somewhat under control and you'll have a lot of people in Superior that really want to gather, and you have community events. You have the Colton building coming online in March. And then how do we kind of balance our budget that was designated for 2020 and take that into 2021, basically. And some thoughts for us to brainstorm on, again, knowing that we have this budgeted, but also wanting to be fiscally responsible and how it may go into next year. Kevin would probably have some thoughts on this, but you know, it would be like increasing a budget next year for block parties. What if we add in, you know, a definite piece or 2 pieces of art, maybe even an art exhibit at the Colton building? What about expanding the budget on the Ormond Roast Trailhead? What about adding in 6 more bus shelters? I know that the Board of Trustees had a discussion that under recreation, they would kind of like to see something with soccer and baseball and, you know, that type of stuff. So maybe adding in 6 more bus shelters. What about, along with the lighting in the underpass, what about adding a mural at the underpass? So there's kind of a lot of things that we as a committee need to brainstorm and how this budget is going to transition from 2020 to 2021 and basically where our dollars would like to go. And Kevin, do you want to jump in? I don't know. I think there's some, or maybe even Leslie, in terms of, we know that we had at least 32,000 this year in our budget that we are not using because we cannot gather or get together. Who knows what that will look like next year, but either one of you have any thoughts on that?
I think Kevin's on the phone, so I'll just offer my 2 cents. Really, I think you can ask for an additional budget next year. It's really not, because we saved it this year doesn't mean it's available next year. It doesn't necessarily work that way. But you certainly can ask for that based on the fact that there is going to be a need, I think, in the future for those events to come back as much as possible. The other thing is, you guys have so much on your plate. You know, you have the art path you're working on, you have a lot of projects, and I would just say pace yourself. If you're going to ask for money and then you have too much on your plate to really spend the time that you want to on those projects. So there's no you know, there's no shame in doing fewer projects in the year. You all have a lot, and I think that you're doing a really good job. You're really spending time to make sure that it's a quality product in the end. But don't overburden yourself, I guess is what I'm saying. There's many years for CAPS to to do public art and to do events. And just keep that in mind.
Good advice.
So in terms of our next step projects, let's see, how do we handle doing the budget for next year? For example, one of the things, and Claire, you can jump in on this, is that we're feeling somewhat of a budget pinch on the Ormond Road Trailhead art, you know, and we know that we have this limit of 25,000. Anything we spend over 25,000 needs to go to the Board of Trustees. But yet if we find, or, you know, the subcommittee finds this amazing piece of art and design and it's $32,000. That was one of the thoughts, a specific example of budget for next year.
I mean, that's one idea. I would say that if we're gonna fund anything more this year, I think the temporary exhibits is a great thing to continue doing, not just throughout the summer, but throughout the rest of the year. And it might be giving grants to artists to come up with something, you know, since people really can't gather, I think it's a great idea to just be putting up temporary things throughout town. So I would say that would be a great thing to maybe focus on this year since we're not doing the events. And then also with the bus shelters, I would think that would be relatively simple to commission a few more since we already have all the documents prepared. But maybe Dina can weigh in on that.
Yeah, any thoughts, Dina, on it? And what's the next step on the budget? Do we have to decide tonight, or can we wait and do it in July? How does that work?
So the result of this conversation should be a recommendation for 2021. So your budget here is currently going to be 150,000, and the board wants to know how you're going to spend it. So really 2021, these line items probably don't have to change too much. And I think, Debbie, you may have been combining the 2020 budget into the 2021 budget. And I don't think that's what you meant to imply. I don't think you meant to say we need to ask for a rollover. I don't think you meant that. Is that correct?
Yes and no, actually. I mean, I know that we do have some specifics that, and one of the examples is to adding to temporary art. I mean, the temporary art bunch is not particularly strong. I mean, it's right here, it's $5,000.
Right.
And as
so,
you know,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, the temporary art is $5,000. The photographers alone were $5,000. And I know we're kind of going into other areas of the CAP's discretionary budget. Not quite sure how that works, and obviously looking for your guidance on that.
So we're talking about two different things here. We're talking about having to reallocate, for example, money from the main event that we're not going to spend into other areas here for 2020. And that's not necessarily what we need to decide on tonight.
Oh, good.
What we need to decide is what we're recommending for 2021. And this is the last opportunity, I believe, for you to present this because it's moving forward. Leslie, is that right? Is this the last chance for them to give input on the budget?
I believe we're going to be meeting, the board is starting to meet on budget beginning in August and with a vote in September. So because the CAPS meetings fall so late in the month, I would try and tidy it up at this meeting as much as you can. You know, it's, I think the bottom line is really the important piece, that 150,000, and then what goes into that. I think you have some time to edit that if we need to.
Yeah, and just a quick explanation too in more detail. So if let's say the Colton project here gets a little bit more money because we are saving on the main event, that's kind of one topic. Rollover wise, we may need to roll over if we have a contract with an artist that we sign in November. we're going to want that $20,000 to roll over to
Mm.
2021. So we don't want to use this $150,000 to cover this $20,000. So that's what I think that finance and the board is going to approve rollover
Okay.
wise, but they're not going to approve us to roll over $25,000 because we didn't spend it because of COVID.
Okay.
That's definitely not something they will approve. They already told me. So now if you want to reallocate this dollar amount into other line items here, that's great, but we don't have to decide that tonight.
Okay. Awesome. Good perspective.
What you need to look at is this $150,000. What projects do you think you're going to have going next year? And are these dollar amounts okay in the way the 150 is broken out? So for example, we don't really know what mail outs exactly is going to be. So that's hard to answer if that's a good line item right there to continue recommending.
I just feel like we should leave it there. That's still a lot of work, and we're still going to be working on, like Leslie said, continuing the our bigger temporary exhibit in the fall carrying over to winter, and then Colton. So I'm good with it. And then you said we'll talk about the 25,000, how we're going to reallocate that in another meeting, right? Because
yeah, we could in July if you want to talk about details.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Because we talked about, you know, like you've got the troll behind you, right? So we talked about kind of a bigger exhibit here. We started talking about that in the temporary subcommittee. I don't see a big number in 2020 for that, so we'll need the main event, or do I not see it?
Temporary.
There's only 5,000.
Oh, right here. It's this one, 15,000. And you know, because it's called Art and Park, so.
Oh, so I thought that we were gonna. Oh,
Yeah.
that's for next year. I thought we were gonna try to do it this winter.
That's right here in the 2021 budget, 5,000 for
Oh,
temporary exhibits.
so it'd be a lot more exciting to take some of the main event money and put it towards it, so we could get something like we were talking about in the subcommittee. We were talking to some artists, like the troll type guy.
Mhm.
Anyway, okay, but my brain is swimming looking at everything that we have to accomplish in 2021. So
Thank goodness there's these amazing subcommittees and you guys are just going like on this path, which is a really good thing. Do we need to vote on it, Tina, for next year for the 2021 budget?
Leslie, do you think are the other advisory groups voting on budgets?
I believe they are voting on their recommendation. Yes.
Okay, so Dina, if we move to accept the 2021 budget of $150,000, we are not locked in to tweaking it in a couple ways. Is that correct or no? You said the board wants to know the subcategories, what we're spending our money on, which makes total sense.
Yeah, and I think this 2021 budget with its categories and itemized amounts is pretty realistic, and I think Mitchell did a really great job putting this together and analyzing the workload. What is not included in this is the potential rollovers. For example, if we have a contract for Colton Building or the trailhead, those are the things that I'll need to noodle out maybe in the next couple weeks to month to make sure that the finance department knows we have contracts from the 2020 budget that need to roll over to 2021.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. Okay, so I move to accept the cultural arts and public space budget for 2021 of the 150,000 in the designated subcategories. Is there a second?
A second.
So I do.
Okay, discussion. Any other tips? Anything anybody wants to add? Okay, Dina, you want to call for a vote?
Yes. Melinda,
Yes.
Christina,
Yep.
Claire,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
and Debbie.
Yes. Okay. A couple things. I think we only have literally about 12 minutes allocated to us under Zoom. Leslie, do you want to touch on just the update on Colton Road? It's item 7B under new business.
Sure, I'll give you
Update
a
report from you.
quick update is PG Arnold Construction is scheduled to mobilize on the site starting Monday. You'll start to see construction fence and they're going to be beginning with demolition, so there'll be some dumpsters on site and things of that nature. They're going to be taking photographs throughout the project so we can give people some updates along the way, and we'll keep you tuned in. Right now, the timeline for completion is March 31st, 2021.
Okay. Along
And
with
just-
that, we need to have a subcommittee or a group that would like to kind of follow the Colton Road project and to be involved with the public art at Colton Road. Do we have to decide that now, or can we put that off, Dina?
I think that you should, you know, probably decide a subcommittee now, because we're going to need to meet with the architect. Leslie, when do you think the first chance will be?
I think that the timeline actually is pretty long for the specific art pieces. Pretty soon, we're going to meet with them to see what are the opportunities in the building. And you won't be able to do art at every opportunity right now. Some you can save for the future. You might pick one opportunity, you might pick two. But I think we do have some time to noodle that out. Those finishes are pretty much the last part of the project is going to be, you know, what's going on the wall and some of those things. If you're really thinking about something grandiose, or if it's going to be outside and it might need lights, that we might need to talk about a little sooner. But for the most part, the art can be a longer timeline.
Okay, so why don't we put the subcommittee on hold a little bit until the July meeting? And anybody who's interested in it, send an email over to Dina or myself.
Leslie, I also want to, it's not just the art, like there's also,
Yes.
there's some of the finishes that I think this team would be good value add to, you know, are we, you know, this is really a gathering place for the community. And so the difference between a regular 6-person tabletop and a picnic bench, it's a big difference. And so I think involving the subcommittee as we get to those finishes, I think is also important. So it's not just, I just want to make it, it's not just the art on the wall for
I
me.
agree.
It's, we also want your opinion around
Right,
kind of the brand we're trying to bring there. So
right. The brand,
this is an important job. This is not going to be a couple hours. This is going to be a lot of work. And so I really appreciate the volunteer work on this
Well,
committee.
and-
This is going to be an interesting one.
yeah. Well, and again, the community center at 1500 Colton is all cultural arts. I mean, we went
Right.
through the whole process and we talked about visual art, performing
Right.
art,
Perfect.
literary arts. I think there's even a kitchen in there somewhere. So it's really the whole concept.
Kitchen didn't make the cut, but that's all
Oh,
right.
didn't? Okay. But I mean,
Hey,
we want to bring it
I-
all together.
I refer to it as an avocado toast kitchen. You will be able to, somebody will be able to make avocado toast there. But there will be no
Okay.
cooking. There was no stovetop, no, what's it called? The hood.
Oven?
There's no hood.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
But if
again,
you want avocado toast, I've been promised avocado toast.
so again, email me if you would like to be a part of this committee. And again, everybody is welcome on any of the subcommittees. The only other thing, just to touch on briefly, because we are totally running out of time. In our public art and design management handbook, there was a section on art before you dig. And kind of over the last few months, that got a little bit shuffled around. As you recall, the concept was before a developer, something happened in Superior, the cultural arts and public spaces would be, as Kevin referenced, almost in the Colton building, they would be consulted basically. And we wanted developments to think about public art. We met, if you might remember, with the Superior Shores developer. Well, he left, a new one has come in. He has no idea that we had actually looked at public art for that area. You may be aware that, for instance, Boulder Creek Builders is coming before the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees for some changes in zoning in that Rogers Farm subdivision. Another example is that Remington in downtown Superior actually has the dollars allocated for public art in the downtown where Remington homes are. So, and then the last thing was the bridge over the creek. You may remember that Ranch Capital and Bill Jenks actually came to the CAPS committee with ideas of, a distinctive visual appeal design on the bridge, and it was approved, but CAPS was not even in the loop on that. So what we need to do and what we need to think about, and we don't have enough time tonight, unfortunately, is to try to get ahead of the curve on bringing in public art. If they're building a path, for instance, as they are in Rogers Farm, how will that incorporate into an art and mobility path? It's really kind of a big part of how we're going to include art, which sort of fell behind the wayside. And again, it's that vision of how we can include public art and public spaces in the town. Dina, do you have any thoughts on that other than just tabling it until next month?
Oh, the first thing I would say is I hope that what Debbie just said doesn't stress everyone out too hard. I have a lot of experience with public art and development, so I'm here to help you implement a vision. So don't worry about the implementation part necessarily, because I'll help you get there. You guys need to decide what the vision is and how you want to recommend processes to the board. And I'll help you figure those out, because I've done it in a lot of communities around the state.
So Dina, is it okay if we table it till July, and then maybe all of the CAPS members, and I mean, Dina has some amazing stuff, and the resources she sent over were just phenomenal. So
yeah, I think that would be fine, unless you think that there's time for anyone to get together between now and the July meeting. Otherwise, the whole group can go through some of this discussion in the July meeting.
I would like us to actually get together before the July meeting, because that art before you dig was a biggie that we had talked about as a committee. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can just schedule that. And anybody who's interested in looking into how that would happen, and that's really more like a public art policy type thing, not quite as much fun as picking really cool art. So we'll schedule time to get together for that. Any other thoughts, discussion, questions? Okay, Dina, 2 quick updates on the bus shelters and the sunflowers under item 7D, and I think we're good.
So 4 of the 6 bus shelters should be getting installed on Monday, and I'll get confirmation of that tomorrow. And then the other 2 are just a little bit longer timeline because of the historic imagery that's been borrowed, and I have to get copyright permission. So we're probably more like 2 weeks out for the last 2.
And we haven't heard anything on sunflowers, right?
Not yet. We're waiting for the town attorney to draft an easement agreement for Target to review. And then from there, we'll even know if Target's location is an option.
Okay. All right. You guys have been so incredibly patient, and it's so hard to include everybody in a discussion when you're in Zoom and not, you know, having that ability to sit around the conference table and hash all this stuff out. It's super, super helpful. Any other ideas or thoughts before we adjourn? Any big burning thing that you want to talk about?
No, we did a lot.
You guys are amazing.
Yeah, nice job, guys.
That's what Leslie says. You're amazing. So awesome. Thanks. I move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Mary,
Rachel.
second?
Second.
Okay. Meeting adjourned at 8 p.m.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. We'll talk soon.